year of survival. That we need to survive the onslaught that is going on. There is an onslaught of materialism. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, prices are going up everywhere. There is an onslaught coming from the environment itself. The climate is turning against us because of what people have done with their hands. The climate that Allah subhanahu has developed for us to protect us is now taking our lives. There is a tidal wave of immorality which is stalking the land. And you could say to a certain extent that here in Trinidad, that you are, in a sense, at this time of the year, in the front lines. Because of the coming of the carnival, because of the movement of people, you are on the front line of holding the fort for those who still believe in modesty, those who still believe in the family. And so I want to talk to you tonight, not just from the mind, but from the heart. And as a community, as a family, we need to be as sincere as we possibly can, because Muslims, I believe, are in a unique situation. This is it's not me. We are in a very unique situation. Can you expand? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed that the Muslim world now has risen over 26% of the Earth's population. I lived on the African continent for 10 years. And surprisingly enough, Islam is the majority religion on the African continent. Muslims in India, Muslims in Indonesia are still expanding and growing. Muslims in Europe. And we reflected the other night that even in Europe, in a place, for instance, like France, that you know for Islamophobia, they ban the hijab. But in Paris and Marseille, people who are 26 years and under, the majority of people in Paris are Muslims in Marseille. In Belgium and in Holland, 50% of the children born in the hospitals are Muslims. Islam is rising and going to far off corners. I was part of the team. I went to the northern territories in Canada. I went to a place in Northwest Territory called Inuvik. And this is in the Arctic Circle. I went to another place on the eastern side, which is called Iqaluit. And this is Arctic Circle. Right now, the temperatures are average minus 20 degrees. When I landed, it was about 0 degrees centigrade, and the brothers had t-shirts on. They were enjoying the warm weather. But by the will of Allah, the people in the north called Inuit, not Eskimo. Eskimo is a bad word. But the Inuit people are embracing Islam. And in Iqaluit, a brother made the intention to translate the Quran into his language, which is called Inuktitut, which was spoken by people 10,000 years ago. To put the book of Allah, the translation, into this language. So this means that Islam is still breaking barriers in the world. Our population is still rising in the world. Our countries are on strategic positions, strategic waterways, strategic mountains, strategic deserts. We have some of the best natural resources underneath the ground. Underneath our countries lies uranium, phosphates, rare minerals. We are probably the wealthiest country, wealthiest group. We look at ourselves as a nation on earth. We have some of the richest people on earth. Some of our leaders are so rich that you can't put their money in a bank account. You can't quantify their money because the gross national product of the country, that's their money. So you can't even compare them with Bill Gates and with other people like this. They are so rich. We also have youth. The majority of Muslims are young people. If you were to take all the Muslims and put them on a plane, you'd see that probably 60% of them are underneath 25 years old. So we are a nation of the future. We have a strong history. We have a history of respect, a history of learning, and we have nothing to be ashamed about. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even blessed us to have the Quran, to have the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ still in authentic form, that we could return to Islam. Even if changes come about, we can go back to the original. And that's what is unique about our nation. And so we provided the impetus. We were the ones that started what is called the Renaissance for Europe. Europe was in its dark ages, and it was Muslim knowledge given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and accumulated from the nations of the world that helped Europe to come out of its darkness into what they call the Renaissance. And so we have amazing potential. But there's a contradiction, and this is what I humbly am bringing forward to you today. It has bothered me for much of my life in traveling around the Muslim world. Because with the great wealth that we have some of the poorest people on the planet. I was called one time to a place in Mali. It's called Timbuktu. And Timbuktu was a center of knowledge. You know, in our generation, they say, oh, go to Timbuktu. That means, oh, go get lost. But Timbuktu was a center of knowledge. In the 16th century, African Muslims had the Sankore University. 25,000 students were studying in Sankore University in Mali. And I went there and spent time with the people. Then I was asked to come to the Emirates. And in Timbuktu, the people are so poor physically. Sand, dust and sand is everywhere. A simple form of life that the people live, but their iman is strong. And I went to the Emirates, it was the opposite. The people have so much money, they don't know what to do with it. This is a contradiction. Our armies, hundreds and thousands of soldiers standing at arms, but we still have Masjid al-Aqsa screaming out to us. Who will defend Masjid al-Aqsa? Who will defend the poor and the weak in the Ummah? There's a contradiction. You have the military strength, but you fight each other. You suppress the poor people. And it causes a type of frustration within us. And so I searched in the book of Allah, what would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have said to us about our condition? In Surah Al-Hashr, it tells us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. O you who believe, have the consciousness of Allah. Let every soul look to what it put forward for tomorrow and fear Allah. Surely Allah is well aware of all that you do. Be not as those who forgot Allah, and so He made them forget themselves. Surely they are the disobedient. And so you can see the gem of wisdom. Allah uses nasiya, this Arabic verb, لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. You forget Allah, He will make you forget yourself. So you have this wealth, it does not go to support the poor and needy. You have these great armies, they do not liberate the oppressed. This is a condition, it is a condition of ghafla, nisyan, forgetfulness that we are in. We also searched the book of Allah. How can we come out of this? And we found in Surah Al-Ra'd that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in section of this ayah, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people to change that which is in themselves. No change. So you can have the nicest robes you want, the longest beard. You can speak beautiful Arabic. If we don't change our hearts, if we don't change something on the inside of us, how we relate to Allah, how we relate to each other, how we relate to society, we cannot expect to gain. And so, Allah tells us in His book, and we need to be serious about the Quran itself. Allah tells us that in their stories, there is certainly a lesson for men of understanding. There is lessons in the Quran. Allah tells us, relate the stories in order that they be. So the Quran was revealed to us not just for tilawah. And a great scholar of Islam, we are mentioning, African scholar, and he came from the country called Morocco. And many of you know Morocco, right? They defeated the Spanish in the World Cup. They defeated the Portuguese. People were crying because they kicked the little ball in the net. But psychologically, it was an amazing thing, because Morocco and North Africa has produced many great scholars. One of them, Sidi Ahmed Zarruq, rahimahullah, who was the faqih of the Malikiya. He was the faqih of Fez in Morocco, the great scholar of the Maliki fiqh. And he said, if you want to be sincere to the Quran, you need three things: tahsin tilawatihi, wa tadabbur ayatihi, wa itba' awamirihi. You should beautify the Quran with tajweed. You should think about what's in the book, and you should follow its commands. And so with this in mind, we are looking at this series. Tonight we are looking at the B, but as many of you may not have been in the first session, and we want to let it flow with you so you can get the complete benefit out of it as we go on. We looked at Surah An-Nahl, the ant, and we found that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nahl itself, and revealing in the Quran, Allah is revealing, and I'll go just in summary. When the armies of Sulaiman were marching, one of the ants cried out to the other ants, "Go into your homes, so that Sulaiman and his army will not crush you." So that ant, Namla, and it's interesting because Namla is used, it's feminine. She cried out. And the majority of the ants, the ones who do the serious work, who keep things going, are females. That's interesting. How would the Prophet ﷺ know if he wrote that book? How would he know to put Namla? How would he know that the ant is feminine? That's clearly a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we found out in studying the ants that the ant is probably the most successful creature on earth. This little ant. And finally tonight, I was walking in my house and I looked down and I saw some ants. And I was surprised because being in Trinidad, I don't know what you did with your ants. But somehow, because of the pesticide or whatever it is, I'm not seeing the ants like I used to see. I lived in Cape Town for 10 years, and the ants are so aggressive that if you live in a mainstream home, if you put down a piece of bread, then suddenly in 15 minutes, there's a line of ants going for it. They're organized. And scientists show us that there are over 12,000 species of ants. And they make up what is called 1/6 of the biomass of all animals on Earth. Like if you would take all human beings, animals, insects, put their bodies on a scale, between 1/6 to 1/4 would be ants. That little creature that you see running around. The ants live on every continent in the world except for one. Does anybody know what it is? The young people, they get it all the time. See, watch out for the youth. Antarctica. It's strange, it's called Antarctica too. The South Pole. That's the only place the ants can't live. But every other place on the world, the ants are there, and they are so successful that for every human being, there are 20 million ants for every one of us. And the ants are organized. There may be millions of ants in a colony, 10 million. They'll come together and they'll form a major colony, and billions. But you know what's deep about the ants? And this is a lesson from Allah. The ants think with one mind. All of them think the same. And they constantly communicate with each other. I was in Cape Town, so I was telling the brothers and sisters, and a line of ants is going one way, I'm watching them, another line is going the other way. Every time an ant passes another ant, they have antennas, they communicate. They will not go by an ant without communicating. And I watched it to see every single time. They communicate with their antennas, they communicate with chemicals. They can literally, through chemicals, warn the ants what is up ahead. But you know what I found that's interesting lesson for the Muslims? That there was one ant passing 3. So she communicated, she gave salams, that's how we would say. She gave salam to the first ant, and the other 2, she just nodded at the other 2. So she gave salams to the Amir of the Jamaat. Right? And the rest, you don't have to give the Amir, we'll give it to the rest. So she nodded to the other 2. Communications. That's an issue for us. Communications. We now have cell phones. But people use their cell phone most of the time for playing around and gaming. This is a highly developed piece of equipment that you have. And we could be communicating with Muslims all over the world simultaneously. The ants think as one mind, and the ants are powerful. One ant can live 50 times her weight. One ant. Could you imagine if a human being would lift 50 times his weight? They call them today like a superhero. 50 times, but at the same time, they still cooperate with each other. They have respect for each other. You have in the colony, the majority of the ants are the females. There is a few small percentages of males called drones. And then there is the queen. And there's full respect for each other. There's no rebellion in the ant colony. The workers are not fighting the bourgeoisie like the socialists want to. This rebellion is futile amongst them. They flow together. Even though there's differences amongst them, they still recognize their unity, recognize each other for what they do, and they work together. You know, I was explaining, they did an experiment in Argentina. Argentina ants are really powerful. You know the Brazilian ants, the red ants? When the red ants come into your village, you just have to leave. But the Argentinian ant is a powerful ant, so they did an experiment. They put a maze. So you go through the tunnels of the maze, and when you reach a certain point, they block it. And you got to go back. And they found out the more difficult it was to travel through the maze, the more polite the ants became with each other. See, that's different with people, right? The more difficult it is for us, we get unruly and start fighting each other. Ants opposite. The more difficult it is, the more polite they are. What did the Prophet ﷺ say about character? In the Muwatta of Imam Malik is reported, he said, verily I have been sent to complete the best in character. So it was the character. And they're able to do amazing things because of this unity. They are so successful. And this picture here, this is important. That mass that you see there is a group of ants in a flood. But they all put their bodies together on a stick and they floated in the water. That's all ants did. They unified themselves. The Prophet ﷺ said, Yadullah ma'al jama'ah. The hand of Allah is with the jama'ah, the united body. Look at the lessons Allah is putting in His book to us. And going through this quickly, because this was our first night, total submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Excellent character. That's what we got of them. Hard work. Selflessness. Unity. And we are defining this now as operational unity. I say this with all humility. We have many jamaats. We have different schools of thought. We have Islamic movements. But the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah especially, we need to have operational unity. That means that you learn to work with your brother and sister, even if you have a difference. If you disagree, you agree to disagree, but that's still your brother and it's still your sister. Humility and strength. Don't use your strength on other people. Use your strength to assist people. And giving salams to everybody. Many of you know that the Prophet ﷺ said the time would come when there would be a salam class, where a person would give salam like on Eid day, after the Imam is finished and you're hugging and giving salams. In Toronto, we have so many nationalities and so many colors. When you find Muslims are weak, so he gives salams to his cousin, and then he looks around for somebody who looks like him. Instead of giving salams to other Muslims who look a little different, but they're still Muslim, they deserve the salams. The Prophet said that would come. And we have to realize that we need to work against this. And so, thinking positive, we can do a lot of things. So we move on to the next of the insects, and that is the bee. It's from Surah Nahl. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in Surah Nahl, verse 68 and 69, وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ. And your Lord inspired the bees. Make your homes in the mountains and the trees and in what people construct. Now this is deep because the Quran is saying, Awha, Wahi. It's revelation. So it is direct communication from the Creator to the bees, giving them guidance as to how to develop their houses and how to live. Then it says, ثم كلي من كل الثمرات فاسلكي سبل ربك ذللا يخرج من بطونها شراب مختلف الألوان فيه شفاء للناس إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. And feed, this is Allah's revelation to the bees, and feed from the flowers of any fruit that you please, and follow the ways of your Lord made easy for you. From their bellies comes forth liquid of varying colors, in which there is healing for people. Surely in this is a sign for those who reflect. Look at this sign Allah has given to us. That He has produced creatures who are able to develop themselves and to produce amazing things. And amongst the bees, And it's interesting because sometimes we forget about the natural world. There's nearly 20,000 species of bees. And the bees also, they live everywhere except what place? Antarctica. It's like so cold. The bees can't make it. Everywhere else in the world, there are bees. This is amazing. And these are some of the popular species of the bees. There's the bumblebee, there's the hornet, there's the yellow jacket, there's the honeybee. You may be familiar with some of these different bees. I haven't really seen any bees in Trinidad. You still have bees here? Okay, you have African bees too. Okay, but I still didn't see bees. Alhamdulillah, I saw some ants. Take me to the mountain. Yeah, we're going to go to Maracas, inshallah, and then we'll see the bees, inshallah. And so the bees, then, they're amazing, the things that they are able to do. And there can be 20 to 40,000 female bees, the workers amongst the bees, females. It's the same thing. See what the Quran was saying? Kuli, fasluki. That's feminine command. The Quran is describing, or it is talking to the bee as a female. How could the Prophet ﷺ, living in the desert in Arabia, without microscopes and anything, how can he know that the bees, the females, the majority of them? How is this? Another miraculous i'jaz of Quran. It's another miracle in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The beehives, how they develop their lives. Allah said, go to the mountains, go to the trees, make these your homes. This is wahi. This is revelation that the bees have received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they would develop out of their hives. They feed on nectar, they feed on the pollens, and they are able to take from this amazing nutrients and to put it together and use it for different purposes. And it's interesting because we take it for granted, but it takes 4 million flowers to make 1 kilo of honey. That's how much work they do. We take it for granted, right? And everybody should have some honey in their house, because it is an amazing gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the anatomy of the bee. And if you look inside, you'll see the special, right in the middle, it's called the honey stomach. And so Allah put this into this creature to be able to take the pollen and take these different parts from nature, and then they develop into the honey deep inside the stomach. How could this be by chance? How could any right-minded person say there's no creator? That's impossible for this to happen as chance. And the bees, in looking at the bee itself, that's what it looks like close. Allah blessed us not to be able to see what they look like this, because that would be scary. But the bee has a pair of large compound eyes, which cover most of the surface of the head. And between and above, there's 3 small, simple eyes, right? And that provides the information according to the intensity of light. This is a miracle that Allah has put into the insects. Now we see what the Quran is talking to us about. Why did Allah make a whole chapter, Surah Nahl? And read in Surah Nahl, there's so many amazing different aspects coming out of the revelation in this chapter. You know what was interesting? They found in ancient Egypt, the Egyptians, their society went way back. Some say 10,000 years ago. But from 3000 BC, African people, because the Egyptians were African people, it was not Yul Brynner and Cleopatra as Elizabeth Taylor. They were African people who had populated the Nile, came from the Sudan area, Nubians, and they populated the Nile region. And in the middle of the kingdom, one of their pharaohs, a lesser one, but he's famous because they found his tomb intact, Tutankhamun, heard of King Tut, right? King Tut. You know what they found? They found a jar inside of this. It had honey in it, and you could eat the honey. No other substance on earth could stay for thousands of years and still be in an edible form. Amazing. And honey itself, it is the only food that includes all the substances that is needed to sustain life, including water. Everything that you need to sustain your life is in honey. There's no other substance, no other product that contains what honey has inside it. So this is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has developed for us from His creation. And so, as Allah said, from their bellies comes forth liquid, varying colors in which there is healing, shifa, for people. Surely in it there is a sign for those who reflect. Honey is amazing. In some parts of the world, even when you get a wound, if you're wounded and it's infected, you can put honey on it. And the honey will literally act like an antiseptic. It has amazing qualities that is inside. And so Allah then shows the miracle. They use the hexagon design and they construct mathematically. They construct their homes using this hexagon, and now the computers, are able to use these shapes. And people are now building based upon what insects have done in the world. And there's a lot of information here. There's some interesting facts, right? And one is that the bees have what is called the waggle dance. The waggle dance. So when the bees communicate with each other, it's a form of a dance. So they move. It gets in the middle, and one of the bees is doing this dance. It's like the Brazilian capoeira. So it's like capoeira. They're doing this dance, and the bee who's doing this is communicating to the other bees and giving them information that will save their lives and that will show them which direction to go in relationship to the hive. And it's deep because it says even when the bee dances for hours, he changes the direction and the amount of wiggles he does per cycle in relationship to the movement of the sun. Imagine this, the wiggle that it does in relationship to the movement of the sun. And he's still telling the other bees exactly where the item is at different times of day. It's amazing what the bees are able to do. So some of the qualities that we take from the bees. Number one, we find that also the bees are selfless. And the bees, they will give their life. If they are attacked, especially you see the female bees, if they sting you, the sting literally rips out their body. So they will give their life and become shaheed. They are martyrs. They will give their life. They have complete selflessness and protection for the other bees. And in this case, you can see in the picture, the bees were killed fighting against the wasp. The wasp is another form of these creatures. The wasp is dangerous. But these bees are shuhada, right? They gave their lives for the hive. And these are some of the points that I made. And the average worker bee makes about 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of honey in a lifetime. So they are constantly producing, living, dying, producing honey. So don't take your honey for granted. And try to get the real honey too, not the false honey. But don't take it for granted. A bee beats his wings or her wings approximately 11,400 times every minute. They're moving their wings. They're tireless in their movements. About 4 million flowers must be visited to make 1 kilo, 22 pounds of honey. So it's amazing. 2.2, sorry. 2.2. 50,000 bees in a colony in the summer. These are just some facts, right? Some of the points we covered. Did you know that the bees are covered by tiny hairs which help spread the pollen from the flower and to help new flowers to grow? So the bees pollinate other plants. And people don't realize when they kill the bees, they're destroying agriculture. Because pollination is done, and the bees are carrying the pollen around to other places. So you could say about 1/3 of the world's food supply depends upon pollination from honeybees. 1/3 of the world's supplies, food supplies. So when we're using pesticides and killing the ants and killing the bees, and building buildings in the places where they used to be, we are destroying our own food supplies. And that is part of the ignorance of human beings who do not have the Quran as a guide and who do not submit to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And so, from the lessons that we get, we see that the Quran has divine knowledge. This reminds us again. It also tells us the importance of honey. And I say this as a person who's suffering from sugar. Throw away that white sugar especially. Natural sweetness. Honey is a beautiful natural sweetener, and there is what is called a tibba nabawi. That is prophetic medicine. And from that, we get natural ways of curing ourselves and eating. This is so important. Our younger generation is being taken away from the natural world. Some people call it the McDonaldization of the world. And I remember coming into one Muslim country, I won't say which country it is. I entered in this darkness. We were coming in from the airport, and the first thing I saw was the golden arches. It was the first thing. See, to take you away from your natural foods and to make our children to want to eat burgers and fries, to McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. Also, the importance of female beings and the importance of women. That's got to remind you. Because in a strong Muslim community, women are the backbone of society. If you crush them, destroy them, lock them up, miseducate them, you're destroying your society. And that's not the way of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. So you will see, and as you know, first person to embrace Islam, Khadija radiallahu anha. First person to die Shaheed, Zubayr radiallahu anha. Second most hadith, Aisha radiallahu anha. There is, in the Battle of Uhud, when they said that the Prophet Sallallahu was killed, people surrounded him. Nusayba radiallahu anha, a woman who was on the battlefield. They were not the front lines, they were auxiliary force. But they could defend themselves. She defended the Prophet with her body. It had like 17 arrows shot into her, defending the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. So this concept that women are weak and need to be locked up and controlled, this is not from the original sunnah of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And this is not the extreme of feminism too, by the way, because feminism is another extreme that we have to watch out for. Another important lesson is that we accept our roles. You see, operational unity? We accept the roles that we have. In the bee colony, there is no revolutions in the colonies. The drones, the males, who mainly live in order to impregnate the queen, They don't cause a revolution because they're big, tough men. They accept their role. Everybody accepts their roles. And we all need to do this. We can't do the same thing. If you have a soccer team, a football team, everybody can't be the goalie. Everybody can't be the striker. If a person tries to play in the front and he's a goalie, you're going to lose. So you have to know your position. The same way amongst the Muslims, we have those Muslims who focus on dhikrullah. There are some who focus on aqidah. There are some who focus on tabligh. There are some who focus on jihad, amr bil ma'ruf, wa nahy anil munkar. All types of groups. If we work together, then we form operational unity. And if there's some difference amongst us, we need to agree to disagree. And we still maintain our unity. Selflessness and personal sacrifice for the benefit of Allah's creation. Our food should be wholesome, halal and wholesome. Allah tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 168, Ya ayyuhan nas, kulu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiba, wa la tattabi'u khutuwat ash-shaytan, innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. Allah tells us, O humanity, eat from that which Allah has given you halal, permissible, and tayyib, wholesome. And do not follow the footsteps of the shaitan, for he is to you an open enemy. So it's halal and tayyiban. And I was shocked, as I mentioned to the brothers and sisters the other day. I was living in South Africa for many years, and they came up with this article and they said, heart attack is hitting us. And the Prophet ﷺ even said there would be this thing called al-maut al-faj'a. There would be this sudden death that would hit our nation. And they said the people who were dying from heart attacks the most were Muslims. This was a shock. And especially from a particular group. In this case, I'll be honest with you, it was Indian Muslims. And I said, what is this? I was invited to a walima in Johannesburg, and then we ate the food, and the meat was swimming in the ghee. It was swimming in it. I loved it too. It tasted really good. It was swimming in the pepper, and it was so nice. My hand was greased, and then when I was finished, they said, okay, brother, now you drink Coca-Cola Classic. So when you take that grease and you put Coca-Cola on it, it's cement. You're cementing your arteries. So even though it is halal, Abdullah Hakim did not say Coca-Cola is haram. Don't make a fatwa here. But halalan tayyiban. It was cementing their arteries, and they're dropping down. Dropping dead, even though they're eating halal food. So we have to review the food that we eat to see that it's not only halal, but it is wholesome foods, especially for the younger generation, especially for our children who are coming. Also, we have to recognize the great blessings of the prophethood, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, this revelation that has come to us by the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is amazing for us. These are some of the lessons from the people. Next time you see that bottle of honey, realize the gift that Allah has given to you. Realize the insects. Don't be afraid of the bees. Don't be afraid of the ants. Yes, we're not inviting ants into our house, but you can channel the ants out. I mean, you don't have to worry now because pesticide is killing them anyway. But if you live in an area where there's a lot of ants, you can give them a message to stay out of your house. But you don't have to kill them. Don't teach the children to kill the insects. To kill Allah's creation. And realize that Allah has blessed us with a chance for us to unite ourselves, and the great potential that we have can come to great fruition if we would only listen to Allah as He told us, إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to change our hearts. May Allah give us the blessings from the Quran itself. May Allah protect our children against the tidal wave of immorality that is hitting our communities. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Now, we have in case you don't, we have a B expert in the audience here. Where's Brother Halim? Raise your hand and see. Where's Brother Halim? Where? Brother Halim has been in bees for maybe 50 years. If there's anybody in Trinidad who is an expert in bees, it's this man here. So, you could talk to him after. Raise your hands if you don't know who you are. Right, he's in front. Second thing is that we have to pray Isha now. But I suggest we come back because some of you may have some questions. I worked in the airline industry, but Fiaz worked in the airline industry. By the laws of aerodynamics, a bee not supposed to fly. It is not supposed to fly scientifically. If you go online, you'll see a series of experiments studying bees how they fly. They study the bumblebee in terms of how does it make vertical lift, how is possible with thick skin and thick body, and it's amazing. Subhanallah. We have to pray now. The controls needs time. Time to get up.
Yeah, because if we could finish,
Okay.
we do the questions now and finish one time.
Okay. You can't say you can't get question. Okay. Let me stop. We'll take any questions you have now. The Shaykh will answer, and then we'll finish on. Now, sorry.
Once told about the experts, there are certain bees that make journeys to the sea to collect sea water. Part of the mixture of the
This is the bee expert here. I'm not an expert either. No, it doesn't sound like because you can see even what Allah is saying. Make your homes in the trees, in the mountains. It's not on the ocean. So it's not. He's not even in the Quran.
So if the expert says he doesn't know anything about that.
Any other questions? Any sisters have any questions or brothers have any questions? Yes, sir.
On one of the expeditions, we have found and killed and with some fire pit. And correct me if I'm wrong. President said, we need a lot of fire and fire. For me, that when you just said, not killing ants.
Right. Okay, I'm not sure the authenticity of that, but it makes sense because we shouldn't be killing the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless, of course, if it's endangering you, then you have the right, especially if some of the insects or animals are coming in your house. And we used to have in Medina, Shaykh when I was here, we were together in Medina, and I lived with the Bedouins, and they have this lizard that comes in and it makes a noise like this. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, if this wazar comes in your house, tell it to leave. Tell it to leave. Because jinni can be inside of it, right? So tell it to leave. If it leaves, let it go. If it doesn't leave, then you have the right to take its life. I was hearing that noise too, and it didn't take in our place. Alhamdulillah, it wasn't inside the house. You hear that noise all the time, right? So it's fine as long as they're not in your house. If they're in your house, make sure they leave out of your house. Because we have enough jinns and problems as it is anyway. Without inviting them. Floor is open for any other questions.
Any other question related to the night?
Make them some help. So this is actually not development. This is actually underdevelopment. As one writer said, I think it was Walter White, he said, how you're underdeveloped Africa. So this so-called civilization is destroying our life. And more people are waking up to this fact. And it's true. So whatever we can do to go back to the natural life, as much as we can, it is better for us. Now, floor is open. Question in the back? Anybody? Yes, brother. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay.
What advice would you give to the farmers who are experiencing problems with the ants attacking their plants? How would they get
Yeah, okay, so the question is, what about the farmers, whose plants are being attacked by the ants? I'm not, an expert in this, obviously, to let you know about that. But Muslims have lived with insects for centuries and found natural ways to do this. Because the problem is the pesticide, the poisons, it poisons the insect, but it poisons us too. And it poisons the environment around as well. So I don't know if our beekeeper has any ideas about this, how to naturally, get the ants out, but there needs to be a way to get the message to the ants, not to come, into your area. Does it have any suggestions? You have to learn to live with them. And there's a way of doing it. And I use the type of when the South African ants are really aggressive. And I lived in sort of what we call a middle class house. And like I say, any food that is there, a scout sends the message and immediately there's a line. So what I would do, I would put some like bug spray or something outside the door on the ground. So when the ants come to it, they know I shouldn't go in. So I didn't kill them, but I gave them a message not to go into this area. So this will require hikmah, wisdom, in how we are dealing with the creation of Allah Azza. Now, any other questions anybody has? The floor is open. Yes, no.
One of the reasons why I have been there natural today. India, for example, I remember he killed a lot of the common house sparrows, and I was just happened. So, of course, here these are very highly polluted, and that is in there yet.
Yeah, so this again, people who don't have the projection, who don't have that natural way can sometimes cause imbalance. We had a problem, I lived in Jamaica for many years, we had a problem with the mongoose. Because the mongoose was brought in, now to be killing, certain, animals. But now the mongoose is a terrorist. So they're all over the place. I saw a mongoose here on the road. You have a mongoose here too? Yeah. So, again, it's knowing how to flow with nature. It's flowing with nature instead of fighting nature. It's a different concept of science. It's holistic science. It's like dealing with our bodies. Instead of taking a whole bunch of drugs, deal with the systemic problem of the body. That's the Tibet Nawawi. What is your body? What is your temperature like? What type of foods should you eat? What type of lifestyle should you live? This is the natural way instead of taking a bunch of drugs. Because the drugs don't necessarily solve your problem, it might complicate you.
My brother, you spoke about organizational unity and cooperation. How do we get people to change their condition at the current days? Because we have families who speak with each other for years, and they're Muslims. What suggestions do you have to get people to cooperate from different angles, from organization, and from individual job?
Part of it is education. You know, the more Islamic education is out there and make it accessible to families, you know, people can realize, study the life of the Prophet ﷺ, the more they get familiar with it, they can come together. But we need activities for the families. For instance, as you may have, we sometimes will have group outings where the families come to a picnic and they come together as group activities, they're functioning together, and then they learn the good qualities of cooperating with each other. So there needs to be more group activities, you know, in our community. And there needs to be group activities between jama'ats. And in terms of operational unity, we need to develop a type of majlis shura, at least the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We have some differences, but for major issues, the Muslims should be one block for major issues. You have some things coming up here now. Your children's education, gender issues. There's some serious things about to hit you. It's hitting us already. And our Imams Council, I'm part of the Imams Council of Canada, and we're in a crisis. And so the Imams have to come together, break down their differences, bring in experts, bring in lawyers to protect our community from the tidal wave of immorality coming in. And the more we are united is the more chance we have to come out of our problems. When we're disunited, the problems get worse. Any other final questions anybody has? I think we're coming to a conclusion now. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
I didn't really want to do that, but I remember the story of the man and stoning, and the story of only the one.
That's right.
And also, I thought about the next ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there isn't anything of His creation except that we glorify Him and praise Him, except that we do not understand their way of glorification. I used to observe the ants like yourself many years ago, and I used to watch them how they walk in the line. And just observing them, I used to take my finger and just press down on two of them. I see what will happen. And then when they coming, the rest coming, they will just run away. So it was like a message to me.
They signal to each other.
Yeah. So
they
like,
communicate.
So like now, whenever I see an ant, I don't want to take its life because I think about why should I take its life? It's not doing anything to me.
That's right. I mean, and we have a serious problem of this unity. You know, and in Toronto, many of you have been there, we have all nationalities and everybody. And this disunity it has to stop. And I came to one community, I won't say which nation it is. And it was Jumu'ah time and they were running late and they brought me in to do the khutbah. And I'm coming in and two places down was another masjid. And as we were coming in the masjid, fire trucks were there in the other masjid. So the brother said, no, come in for Jumu'ah, come on, come on. I said, wait a minute, brother, the fire trucks are there. They're Muslims. They said, no, just make it's okay. So I went and I gave them the khutbah and talk, and I finished it afterwards. I said to the brothers, what happened over there? And they said, I don't know. And they're all Muslims. That has to stop. And the time is going to come. The crisis is coming so deep on our nation now that we have to drop this attitude of one school of God, the one Islamic movement. We have to appreciate each other. If the gangsters were coming and attacking you, and they chase you down an alley, this is real in Port of Spain now. I was just there today. The gangsters are chasing you, and somebody calls and says, you know, Ali, come. And you go and you look, are you going to say to him, Are you a Hanafi? No, man. You're going to say, Alhamdulillah, there's a Muslim who's saving my life. So we need to get serious about uniting ourselves. Agree to disagree. Minor points of furor, there's a minor thing. There's different ways of making salah. There's different ways. That's how the sunnah is, broad. So we need to be able to appreciate each other. And I pray that Allah would continue to bless you and bless the Imam and to bless this community. Alhamdulillah, we can grow from strength to strength. And may Allah make it easy for our children, easy for our future. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Shukran, jazakumullahu khairan. My last comment is really for my brothers and sisters. We have to really use Quran for guidance. That is a prime resource. Who does it? So story is supposed to resound with us. Allah make the story resound in our hearts. The only quick announcements that we have is that the Shaykh is taking a break tomorrow, but not a break from lectures, but he has other things to do, meetings and so on tomorrow. So there's no lecture tomorrow night. On Tuesday, the lecture is going to be online. It's going to be online, and you'll be dealing with the anchor boat then, the spider. On Tuesday night from 8:30 until 9:30. The name, inshallah, will be sent out on IDM's Facebook and Instagram pages. So log in, inshallah, we have already set up, and there are people from other parts. Right now we have more than 75 people, 70 people, almost 70 people online, some from Virginia, some from New York, some from Houston, and several from Trinidad and Tobago as well accessing. He's going to Tobago on Wednesday and Thursday. He's doing a lecture on Tobago on the Wednesday night. He's returning, and on Friday is the last session. And he's going to address the issue of the age of deception. We're in a difficult age, and we are in an age where deception is happening. Allah warns us in Quran not to be beguiled and deceived by the shaitan. So, inshallah, that is going to be discussing the condition of the Muslim world, and that is going to start at 7 o'clock on Friday at Masjid Hadi. I just throw it in that Masjid provide dinner, right? Yeah, Imam, just say it. Inshallah, we have dinner for everybody on Friday night at Masjid Hadi. But more importantly, we look at dinner, we have the lecture on the age and times we are in of deception. We will pray now. So the good news is that, alhamdulillah, the Shaykh is with us and we are learning. Unfortunately, guys, the masjid only catered for about 125 people, so we have more people than the amount of boxes we have. We have many more people than the staffs that we have. So Imam, how do we treat with this? Only families, sisters? All right. So this is what we do, inshallah. We are all Muslims. We want to ensure all finish. So don't say you're leaving it for people and it remains here. We want you to take the sisters who have children, take first, the brothers, inshallah, families, you take. And once it is any remain, the single brothers you take. We don't want anything to remain. But don't say, I love my brother, I will leave it, and then we go downstairs and all the food remain upstairs, right? So please let us share it out when we can. There's Jummah TML on Friday. I forgot Jummah TML. He'll be there inshallah Friday at Jummah, and Friday night is the last session, and he leaves on Saturday to return. So we want to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bless you for coming out. And honestly, I seriously commend you and ask Allah to bless you for coming out on a Sunday evening. And when we see a beat the next time, or an anti the next time, maybe our understanding and our appreciation will change. We finish with dua for Kafara, inshallah, and then we go upstairs to pray. We get snapped now? Imam? Riyad? We share it now? Okay, we put it out there, inshallah, you know what to do. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Adhan going to be called at 8 o'clock and at 10 past 8. 10 past 8 is the fire.